Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to show you how to publish a Unity game to Apple's App Store. Those of you who are not familiar with this channel and are here specifically for what the video title says, publishing, you can navigate directly to the respective part of the video using the progress bar below. If you've been hanging out with us for a while though and are familiar with the content on this channel, this video might seem a bit random. Unity, publishing, we just made a Tetris game in Java, didn't we? If that's what you think, we don't blame you. And before we get to the main part of this video, let me explain what's going on here. Game making in general, and game making with Unity in particular, has always been in the plan for this channel. And after completing the Tetris video series, we started thinking about the best way to transition to Unity. Initially we thought we'd make a new video series on something simple, like a puzzle or a bowling game, but eventually we decided to show you how to make a mobile game in Unity. Not too complex, but good enough to get accepted to Apple's App Store and Google Play. Now that we've finished making the game and had it accepted to the stores, we're going to start working on the video series to show you how to make that game, in the same manner as we showed you how to make the Tetris game. You can check out the game that we made, the links are in the video description, and if you get interested in learning how to make that game, stay tuned. Alright, so here's the process of publishing a Unity mobile game to Apple's App Store. To publish our game, we will have to do the following. Number 1. Create an Apple ID. Number 2. Set up an Apple developer account. Number 3. Create distribution certificate, App ID, and provisioning profile. Number 4. Create a game listing in App Store Connect. Number 5. Build a game in Unity, archive it in Xcode, and upload to App Store Connect. Number 6. Complete app submission and submit for review. And number 7. Submit the game to the App Store. Alright, so first of all, we need to create an Apple ID. To do that, we go to appleid.apple.com. If you already have an Apple ID, you can skip this step. On the Apple ID page, we click Create your Apple ID. Then we fill out the registration form. Make sure you enter correct information since this is an account that you will potentially be using to make money. Once you're done filling out the form, make sure you agree to whatever Apple wants you to. Fill out the CAPTCHA field and press Continue. Here, Apple is asking you to confirm your email address by entering a 6-digit code sent to the email you provided in the registration form. Next, we confirm our phone number the same way we confirmed our email. And once we're done with that, we get signed in to our newly created Apple account. And step 1, complete. Next, we need to create an Apple developer account. Here we go to the account page and agree to be bound by the Apple Developer Agreement. If you want to, you can also agree to receive potentially useful info from Apple. Alright, now, to be able to publish to the App Store, we have to join the Apple Developer Program, which is $99 a year in your local currency. Sounds like a lot? Well, yeah, but you will quickly forget about this inconvenience as you fight your way through other hurdles that Apple, whether intentionally or not, has set up for new developers. So on this page, you can read about the program and then click Enroll. After reading this info, we scroll down and hit Start Your Enrollment, which takes us to another page with another form that we need to fill out. Here I entered a fake name basically because I already have another account and I'm creating this one just to show you the process. So we hit Continue. And here we can choose our entity type, whether we want to publish as an individual or an organization. Apple allows you to transfer a published app to another account, meaning if you want to register a business account, but at the moment you do not have a business registration, you can enroll in the developer program as an individual, and later register a business account and transfer your apps to that new account. So here we're going to go with individual/sole proprietor. Another agreement to accept. And here's the fun part, payment in your local currency. When you click Purchase, it will take you to another page where you can complete the purchase. It will take some time to process your payment, so you can take a break, get a snack, and grieve over $99 you just paid. Once your payment has been successfully processed, you will get 3 emails. One with a payment confirmation, another one welcoming you to the Apple Developer Program, and finally, an email that welcomes you to App Store Connect. So, step 2, complete. And here's where the easiest part of the publishing process is over. Ahead is just suffering that will make you forget about the $99. Now we need to create 3 things: a distribution certificate, an app ID, and a provisioning profile for the app. To do that, let's go to our developer account. To create a certificate, we choose Certificates, IDs, and Profiles on the left. And this is what your certificates page would look like. Here we hit Create a Certificate. And Apple Distribution here. We need a distribution certificate because we want to upload an app to the App Store. We're not going to go over other certificate types, but feel free to do an additional research if you're curious. And when you're ready to proceed, hit Continue. Here it's getting more annoying. To create a sign-in request, we need to open the Keychain Access app. Then go Keychain Access, Certificate Assistant, request a certificate from a certificate authority. For certificate information, we need to provide the email that we used to create our developer account, and give it a name. We don't need to provide a CA email address because we're going to upload the request manually. To do that, we choose to save the request to disk. And when we do that, the CA email address field is no longer required. So we hit Continue. And choose to save the request to desktop or any other easily accessible location in your computer. Now here on the Create a New Certificate page, we click Choose File, give it the request file that we've just created in Keychain Access, and press Continue. On this page, we click Download to download the certificate to our computer to be able to use it to build our app in Xcode. I recommend that you keep all these distribution-related files in a separate folder. So I created a folder named Apple Distribution that currently has the certificate request file that we used to generate the certificate, and I'm going to save that certificate to the same folder. And now if we click All Certificates here, we will go back to the Certificates page, where we can see the certificate we've just created. Next, we need to create an ID for the app, so we go to the Identifiers page. If you just created your developer account, you will not have any identifiers here, so don't worry if your list of identifiers is empty. We're going to create a new one now. To do that, let's click the plus button here. And with App ID selected, we hit Continue. And here, with App selected, we hit Continue again. The other option, App Clip, is basically a limited version of your app that helps the user to figure out what the main features of your app are and whether that's what they need. Here we need to specify a bundle ID that will be used to identify our app. The general format for a bundle ID uses a reverse domain name style, meaning for my domain name, which is mrmprogramming.art, it should be art.mrmprogramming, but I'm going to use com.mrmprogramming just because bundle IDs commonly begin with com or org, and end with a name that you want to use as your app ID. A bundle ID is used for internal purposes and is generally not available to the end user, so basically you can choose any app name for a bundle ID, but it's never a good idea to use completely random names. I'm going to go with publishing test. Note that a bundle ID cannot contain spaces, so I'm using a hyphen to separate the words. Then we need to fill out a description field. Description is just another name for an identifier, but it can contain spaces and can be more descriptive than a bundle ID. Next, we can choose capabilities that should be available for our app. Capabilities are services provided by the operating system, iOS in our case, that you'd like to have access to in your app. Feel free to explore what capabilities there are and see which of them your app needs. Once you're done with that, hit Continue. If nothing's wrong with the info we entered, we will get this Register button. If something went wrong, for example, the bundle ID is not valid or not available, we would need to fix the issues first and then hit Register, which will take us back to the identifiers page where we can now see the one that we've just created. So we've created a distribution certificate and an app identifier. Now we need to create a provisioning profile that will link the certificate to the identifier, allowing us to build and upload our app in Xcode. If your head is starting to spin, your brain is starting to melt, and you get this feeling that the publishing process is too complicated, I'm with you on that. I wish there was a big blue button somewhere that says Publish My App. And I wish all we had to do is press that button, but unfortunately that's not the case. So enough of whining, let's go back to business. To create a provisioning profile, we go to the Profiles page and hit Generate a Profile. What we need is an App Store distribution profile. And we hit Continue. On this page, we select the app ID that we made earlier. For me, it's this one, named Publishing Test. For you, it's whatever you named your app ID. And continue again. Now we need to specify the signing certificate that will be used in the provisioning profile. And continue again. Here, we name our profile. I'm going to give it a name that matches the app ID. And hit Generate. Now we need to download the profile. And I'm going to save it to the folder that already contains the certificate sign-in request and the certificate itself. If we go back to the Profiles page now, we will see our newly created profile. And if you have completely lost the sense of what we're doing, I'm not blaming you, but you might be interested to know that step 3 is complete. Now it's time to create an App Store listing for our game. And here is another annoying part. App listings are created in a separate system called App Store Connect. One way to navigate there is to go back to the developer account main page, and hit App Store Connect on the left, right below Certificates, IDs, and Profiles. And here we press Go to App Store Connect, which thankfully takes us to App Store Connect. And this is what the App Store Connect dashboard would look like. Here we hit My Apps to see our apps. I already have an app ready for publishing and I wish I could hide it not to confuse you, but anyways, if your app list is blank, that's fine. We will create a new one right now by pressing the plus button here. And choose a new app. Here we specify the platform that our game is available on. In my case, it's iOS only. Then we give our game a name. Note that this is the name that will be displayed on the App Store, so you don't want it to be random. But I'll go with the OG publishing test because I'm not going to publish this one. Then we choose the primary language for our game, which in my case is English. I wish they had a generic English that's not country specific, but whatever. Then we select our bundle ID that we created earlier. And another ID that we need to specify for some stock keeping purposes, which is what SKUs are used for. It can be any unique identifier. It can contain numbers, it can represent a date, anything as long as it's unique and meaningful to a certain degree. I'm going to go with the same old publishing test thingy. Lastly, user access. This is for large organizations with a lot of people having access to the App Store account. Because that's not my case and quite likely not your case, let's go with full access. And hit Create. And this is what our game listing would look like. Before we fill it out, let's first build and upload our game. Oh, and yeah, step 4, complete. To build our game, we open the project in Unity. Then we go File, Build Settings. Here, make sure you have this Unity icon next to iOS, which means that iOS is selected as the build target. If you have something else selected, then you click on iOS, and the caption on this button will change to Switch Platform. Once we're done with that, we go to Player Settings by pressing this button. Here we fill out company name, product name, and version. And set the app icon. This is the icon that will be displayed on your phone when you install the app. Please note that the icon must be 1024 by 1024 pixels for the App Store. Next, we go to Other Settings and scroll down to the Identification section. Ideally, this bundle identifier should match the identifier we used in the game listing that we created earlier in App Store Connect, but we can change it later in Xcode. However, if you don't want to change it in Xcode every time you build your game, you might want to set it up here in Unity. Alright, next we close the Player Settings window and press Build here. Unity will ask you to specify the location for the build. I already have a folder named iOS. If you don't, please create a separate folder for your build. And then click Choose. Unity is going to take some time building our game, and when it's done, it will open the folder with a generated Xcode project that we need to build again in Xcode. So let's open this project. Now let's click on the project to check its settings. Here you can see properties that can be set up in Unity as well, such as display name, bundle identifier, version, and build. We'll come back to the bundle identifier later, but before we move on, there is one more thing that's worth mentioning. This one, Build. Every time you create a build that you want to upload to App Store Connect, make sure you increase the build number or change its version. Otherwise, your build will not be accepted. Now let's open the Signing In Capabilities tab. And immediately we see an error saying that our project requires a development team. To fix this, we need to add our Apple developer account to Xcode by clicking this Add Account button and signing in with the Apple ID we used to create our developer account. Next, we need to install the distribution certificate that we created and download it to our computer in step 3. This one. Just double-click it to have it added to the Keychain Access app. Now, if we select our newly added developer account from the team drop-down list, we'll get another error. Basically, this one happens because Xcode cannot find a provisioning profile for our app. A provisioning profile is another thing that we created and downloaded to our computer in step 3. To feed the provisioning profile to Xcode, we first need to turn off automatic signing by unchecking it here. Now we can import the profile that we downloaded in step 3. And we get more errors. This one happens because the bundle ID of our build doesn't match the bundle ID in the provisioning profile. So what we do here is we copy the bundle ID of the provisioning profile and paste it in the bundle identifier field. And now if we go back to the General tab, we will see that the bundle identifier there has changed as well. Alright, back to the Signing In Capabilities tab. Now there are no errors and we can finally build our game. To do that, we go Product, Archive, and wait for the archiving to finish. At the end, Xcode will ask you to enter the password you use to log in to your computer, the password that you enter when, for example, installing a new app to your Mac. And finally, when the building is complete, Xcode opens the Organizer window, where we can upload our game to App Store Connect by clicking this Distribute App button. Here we click Next since we do want to upload to App Store Connect. Here we get two options, either upload directly to App Store Connect, or save the build to our computer and upload it to App Store Connect manually later. Let's go with Upload. Here we have two options turned on by default. We're just going to go with defaults even though we can opt out just to keep it simple, Here we once again specify a provisioning profile for a game and click Next. Enter a password again, and finally, click Upload after checking the summary of the build. Then click Done when uploading is finished. And step 5 complete. So we can now go back to App Store Connect and complete our app submission. To see the build that we've just uploaded, we go to the Test Flight tab. There used to be another tab called Activities where you could find all the builds that you've uploaded, but now the builds are under the Test Flight tab. So here we can see our build with a warning that it's missing compliance, so let's fix this by clicking Manage here. What we need to report here is whether our game is using any sort of encryption. Off the top of your head, you might say no, but if you're using Unity, you can never be sure. There might be some sort of data transfer which might use encryption, so here, I personally believe it's safer to answer yes, unless you want to do a detailed research. If you answer yes, however, you will get a follow-up question whether your app qualifies for an exemption. Now, generally speaking, if encryption is not a feature of your app, but more like a security mechanism, you can answer yes here. But do make sure to do proper research for your specific app. Again, let me repeat, this part is not a universal instruction. It is specific to your app, and it's ultimately your responsibility to make sure you've provided accurate information. Now our game is ready for internal testing via test flight, meaning before you submit your app for review, you can have it tested by the people you know and make changes based on their feedback. We're not going to cover this part in this video and we'll move on to the publishing process, assuming that you've already done all the testing and are ready to release your game. So we go back to the App Store tab. Here we need to upload screenshots taken on a 6.5 and 5.5 inch iPhone. Luckily, you don't have to have the actual devices and you can take those screenshots in Unity by using the Screen Capture class. Just make sure you set correct screen resolutions when taking screenshots. We're not going to cover this part in this video either to keep it specific to publication, so we're moving on. In addition to screenshots, we need to fill out the promotional text, description, keyword, and support URL fields. For the support URL, you need to provide a link to a web page that provides info about your game. What you can do here is you can check existing app listings on the App Store and use their app support pages as a reference. More details about this later in the video. Next, we need to select a build that we want to publish by clicking this button and choosing the build we've just uploaded. In the app review information section, we need to provide the contact info of the person to be contacted by the Apple review person if needed. If your game requires login, make sure you provide login credentials for the reviewer to be able to run your game. Lastly, you can choose whether you want to publish your game manually or automatically. And once you're done with this, make sure you save the changes. I'm not going to save anything here, and we're moving on to the next part of the app listing, which is app information, where we need to set up content rights and age rating. For the content rights, you basically need to confirm that your app does not illegally show any content owned by someone else. For example, you cannot play movies in your game if you don't have an appropriate license. Next, to determine the age rating for a game, you need to complete a questionnaire. Again, this is not a universal instruction and it must be specific to your game. Once we're done here, we can move on to the next section, pricing and availability, which is pretty much straightforward, so we're moving on to the app privacy section. Here we need to provide a URL to our privacy policy. Just like with the app support page that was mentioned earlier in the video, you can check existing app listings on the App Store and use their developers' privacy policies as a reference. To make your privacy policy publicly available, you don't really need to set up your own custom website. You can use free-to-use website building platforms like Google Sites and set up a simple website with only 2 web pages, one for the app support page and the other one for your privacy policy. I will show you how to find both the app support page and the privacy policy page a bit later in the video. Another pain in the butt is the data collection survey that we can access by pressing this Get Started button. Just like with encryption, even if you do not collect user data, Unity might be doing that. For example, the game that I'm publishing is using Unity Ads, which does collect user data and perform tracking. If that's your case as well, you should answer yes here. Now, since we answered yes, we need to specify what kind of data we collect. Luckily, Unity Ads provides us information and we can Google it up. Okay, here we can see that Unity Ads does not collect contact info. Or health and fitness data. Or financial data. But it does collect course location data. So in the survey, we check course location. We also check customer support, user ID and device ID, purchases, product interaction and advertising data, performance data, and other data. And hit save. And now, for each data type that we selected, we need to provide additional details. For example, for course location, we specify that it's collected for third-party advertising because we're now specifically talking about Unity Ads. Then we need to specify whether the data is linked to user identity. We can find the answer in the same table. Here, it says that course location is linked to user, so we select yes. Next, tracking. Again, Unity says that the course location data is used for third-party tracking, so we answer yes again. And hit save. And we need to do that for all data types that we selected. Again, keep in mind that this is not a universal instruction, and we chose those data types because that's what Unity Ads is collecting. If you are using other third-party services or you as a developer collect user data, that should be reflected in the app privacy section. So make sure you have everything in order before you proceed with your app submission. And we are moving on. There isn't anything super relevant to the publishing process on the ratings and reviews and version history pages, so we're going to skip those and go back to the submission page. Once you've completed your app listing, you need to press the Submit for Review button and wait for Apple to review your app. And step 6, complete. Apple says that 50% of review submissions are processed within 24 hours and 90% of submissions within 48 hours. For us, it took less than 24 hours. If there are issues with your app, you will receive an email. And once you've fixed all the issues, which might involve rebuilding and re-uploading your app to App Store Connect, you submit it for review again. And when your app has been approved, if you chose to manually publish it, you will see this Release this version button instead of the Submit for Review button. And when you press this button, your game will go live and become ready for sale. Congratulations! And this is our step 7, which is complete. It might take some time for your app to become available on the App Store. In our case, it took a few minutes, but it might take up to 24 hours. You will receive an email from Apple with the App Store ID for your app. And if you click this tiny little button next to your app name, you will see your app listing on the App Store. Now, I promised to show you how to find the app support page and the privacy policy page. If you scroll down, at the bottom of the app listing, you will see 2 links, App Support and Privacy Policy. So now, if you need references to create yours, you can check existing app listings on the App Store and use those. Oh, and by the way, now that you have published an app to the App Store, you get this plus button here that enables you to release updates for your app. Alright, before we wrap up this video, again, we're currently working on a video series to show you the entire process of making the game we've just published in this video. You can check out the game, the links are in the video description, and if you get interested in learning how to make that game, stay tuned. And this is it for this video. See you in the next one. Bye!